My wife assumed I was broke. She cheated, stole $43,000, then served me divorce papers in my hospital bed. When she found out about my $47 million inheritance in court, my lawyer dropped a bombshell that changed everything. All right, Reddit. So the morphine was still wearing off when Madison walked into my hospital room with her lawyer. Not flowers, not a, how are you feeling? Not even fake concern. Just my wife of 8 years in a crisp designer blouse I'd never seen before, and some guy in a suit that probably cost more than our mortgage payment. Here's how my marriage died in a hospital room, and how karma came back with a vengeance. I'm Trevor, 34 male, and I've been working as a civil engineer for the past 12 years. Started at a mid-sized firm in Pasadena right out of college. Worked my way up to senior project manager. Decent salary, around $120,000 a year, but nothing crazy. Most of my money went to the mortgage on our modest 3-bedroom house in Glendale, my truck payment, and Madison's endless list of necessities. I grew up in a blue-collar household. Dad was a plumber, Mom worked as a school secretary. They taught me the value of hard work and saving money. Never had much growing up, but we had enough. Dad used to say, "Son, money doesn't buy happiness, but debt sure buys misery." That stuck with me. My one real hobby was woodworking. Had a small workshop in our garage where I'd spend weekends building furniture, cabinets, tables, bookcases. Started when I was 16 helping my grandfather in his shop. He taught me everything from joinery techniques to wood finishing. The smell of fresh cut wood and the satisfaction of creating something with your own hands, that's therapy you can't buy. Some guys play video games to decompress. I make chairs. Madison and I met at a mutual friend's wedding 9 years ago. She was stunning. Auburn hair, always put together, worked in sales at some tech solutions company. We hit it off immediately. She was confident, ambitious, knew what she wanted. Or at least, I thought she knew what she wanted. We got married after a year of dating small ceremony. Nothing extravagant. Her parents paid for most of it. Her dad owned a chain of car dealerships and had money to burn. We moved into the Glendale house about 6 months after the wedding I'd saved for 3 years to make the down payment. Proud as hell when we got the keys. For the first few years, things were solid. We had our routines. Sunday farmers market runs, Friday date nights at local restaurants, summer road trips up the coast. Madison was supportive of my career, or at least she seemed to be. She'd ask about my projects, celebrate my promotions, act interested when I talked about foundation systems and structural load calculations. Looking back now, I can see when things started changing. It was subtle at first, like watching paint fade. Around year 5 of our marriage, Madison got promoted to account manager at her company. Suddenly, she was making client dinners, networking events, weekend conferences. Her wardrobe upgraded from business casual to designer everything. She started making comments about our house being too small and our neighborhood being starter home territory. Mentioned how her colleague just bought a place in Manhattan Beach, how another friend was driving a Tesla. The implication was clear. I wasn't providing enough. Never mind that I was busting my rear working 50-hour weeks on major infrastructure projects while she was selling software solutions. But the real shift happened about 18 months ago. December 2023, to be exact. That's when Madison became a different person entirely. She started working late, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays without fail. She'd text around 5 saying she had to finish a proposal or meet with a client. Wouldn't get home until 10 or 11, sometimes even later. She'd walk in exhausted, grab leftovers from the fridge, and go straight to bed without much conversation. I believed her at first. Tech sales is demanding. I got that. My job had its share of deadline crunches too, but something felt off. The way she'd avoid eye contact when talking about work. The way her stories about these late meetings were always vague, lacking the specific details she usually included. In January, she joined a gym. Started going at 5:30 in the morning before work. Something completely out of character. Madison, who'd always been a night owl, who complained about waking up before 8 on weekends, suddenly became a morning person. She'd come home by 7, showered and glowing, talking about her amazing workout and how energized she felt. Except her gym bag never smelled like sweat. It smelled like hotel soap. That expensive kind you get at nice places, not the generic stuff from gym locker rooms. Her phone habits changed too. Always face down now, always on silent. She'd grab it the second a notification came through and walk to another room to check it. Password protected everything. Her phone, her laptop, even her tablet. When I asked about it once, she said she was being security conscious because of work confidentiality agreements. Then there was the money situation that really got my attention. I'd always handled our finances. We had a joint checking account where both our paychecks went, And I managed the bills, investments, and savings. Madison had access to everything. She just never bothered looking at statements or tracking expenses. That was my thing, she'd say. In February, I noticed something weird while reviewing our monthly statements. Cash withdrawals. $200 here, $500 there, $300 at an ATM I didn't recognize across town. When I added it up, she'd pulled out nearly $8,000 in 3 months. What's this about? I asked her one evening, showing her the statement while we were having dinner. She barely looked up from her phone. Oh, I've been getting cash for lunches and stuff. My card keeps getting declined at this one place I like near the office. That made absolutely no sense. Our cards had never been declined. We had excellent credit and plenty of available balance. Plus, $8,000 on lunch? That's over $2,600 a month. Nobody spends that much on takeout salads. But I didn't push it. That was my first mistake, giving her the benefit of the doubt when my gut was screaming that something was wrong. By March, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The late nights, the early gym sessions, the new wardrobe that kept appearing, the mysterious cash withdrawals, the way she'd practically jump when her phone buzzed. It all pointed to one obvious conclusion: I did what any suspicious husband would do in 2025. I waited until she was in the shower one Saturday morning and grabbed her phone from the nightstand. Knew her passcode because I'd seen her type it in months ago. 0624, her mom's birthday. The phone unlocked, and my entire world collapsed in about 30 seconds. Text messages with someone saved as BH Work. Hundreds of them going back to October. I scrolled through with shaking hands, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Can't wait to see you Thursday. Same place as last time? That thing you do with your hands drives me absolutely crazy. Told Trevor I'm working late tonight. We have until midnight at least. I felt physically sick. Kept scrolling. Couldn't stop myself. Found photos. Madison and some guy I'd never seen, professional-looking dude. Probably mid-40s, expensive suit, confident smile. They were at restaurants I recognized, at what looked like hotel lobbies, in his car. Her hand on his face in one shot, his arm around her waist in another. Kissing in a parking garage. The shower turned off. I quickly took screenshots on my own phone, capturing as many messages as I could before she came out. Put her phone back exactly where it was on the nightstand. When Madison emerged from the bathroom, toweling her hair, I was sitting on the bed pretending to read news on my phone. You okay? She asked, noticing something in my expression. Fine, just tired from the week. That night, I couldn't sleep. Just lay there next to her in our bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the biggest idiot in California 8 years of marriage. I'd built custom furniture for our house, planned our entire future, trusted her completely with everything. And she'd been systematically lying to me for at least 5 months that I could prove. The next morning, Sunday, I called my college roommate Owen. He'd gone through a brutal divorce 2 years earlier, knew exactly how these situations worked. She's cheating, I told him over coffee at a diner near my office. We met early, before Madison woke up. I showed him the screenshots. Owen looked through them, jaw clenched. Brother, I'm sorry, this is rough, but you need to document everything before you confront her. Bank statements, phone records, everything you can get your hands on, and you need a good lawyer yesterday? I don't even know where to start. I'll give you my attorney's number, Catherine Miller. She's tough, knows California law inside and out, and she doesn't mess around. But Trevor, do not tip your hand yet. Keep acting normal until you have everything documented. Trust me on this. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly gathering evidence while pretending everything was fine. Requested copies of all our bank statements going back 18 months. Downloaded our credit card transactions. Took more screenshots whenever Madison left her phone unattended, which happened more often than you'd think. She'd gotten comfortable, sloppy even. The financial picture got significantly worse the more I investigated. She hadn't just been pulling cash recently. The withdrawals went back to April of the previous year. Total amount, $43,600. Over $43,000 systematically removed from our joint account. Then I found something that made my stomach completely drop. A bank statement from an account I'd never seen before. It had fallen out of Madison's work bag when I was looking for my sunglasses one afternoon. Joint savings account opened in April 2024. Account holders, Madison Patterson and Blake Harrison. Blake Harrison, BH Work. I looked him up on LinkedIn immediately. VP of Sales at Madison's company, Maverick Solutions. Married, 2 kids, lived in Calabasas, in what looked like a very nice house based on the photos on his profile. This guy was her boss, and they had a secret bank account together. I logged into our bank and checked the account details I'd found. The statement showed a balance of $43,600. Every single dollar Madison had withdrawn from our joint account over the past 14 months had gone straight into this shared account with her affair partner. That's when I understood this wasn't just an affair. This was planned, calculated, strategic. They were building a nest egg together, preparing for something I needed a lawyer immediately. Owen recommended Catherine Miller, his divorce attorney, who'd helped him survive his own marriage implosion. She had a reputation for being thorough, aggressive when needed, and brilliant in court. I called her office Monday morning and made an appointment for that Wednesday. Catherine's office was in downtown Los Angeles, 23rd floor of a glass tower with a view of the entire city stretching to the ocean. She was mid-50s, sharp-eyed, with gray hair pulled back, and the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter automatically. I laid out everything across her conference table: the affair, the money transfers, the secret joint account with Blake Harrison. Showed her the screenshots, the bank statements, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Catherine reviewed it all methodically, taking notes on a yellow legal pad in neat handwriting. When she finished, she looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "This is good. Actually, this is excellent for your case. California is a no-fault divorce state, which means the affair itself doesn't technically matter for grounds. But financial misconduct is absolutely relevant for asset division and spousal support. Your wife was essentially embezzling marital funds to finance an affair and build assets with another man. What do I do now? Nothing yet. Don't confront her. Don't let on that you know anything. The element of surprise is your biggest advantage here. How long can you maintain normalcy? I don't know, a few weeks maybe? It's hard pretending everything's fine. I understand, but it's crucial. I need you to keep documenting every withdrawal, every late night, every text message you can access safely. The more evidence we have when we file, the stronger our position. Can you do that?" I nodded. "Yeah, I can do that." That conversation was in late March 2025. I walked out of Catherine's office feeling oddly calm, despite the chaos my life had become. I had a plan now. I wasn't just a victim anymore, I was preparing a response. Then, 2 weeks later in early April, my Uncle Lawrence died. Uncle Lawrence was my dad's older brother. Never married, no kids, spent his whole adult life building his real estate investment company in Oregon. He and I had always been close growing up. He'd visit every Thanksgiving, call on my birthday without fail, send generous checks for Christmas. Solid guy. Self-made, blue-collar roots just like Dad. I knew he'd been sick. Lung cancer, stage 4. Dad had gone up to Portland multiple times over the past year to help him through treatment and keep him company. When he finally passed, it was expected, but still hit hard. He was only 68, had plans for retirement he'd never get to enjoy. The funeral was on a Saturday in Portland. Madison came with me, played the supportive wife role perfectly, held my hand during the service, hugged my dad and consoled him, told everyone how sorry she was for our loss. I watched her perform, knowing what I knew, and felt absolutely nothing but contempt. The woman was a world-class actress when she needed to be. About a week after the funeral, I got a call from Uncle Lawrence's executor, a lawyer named Donald Wright from a firm in Portland. "Trevor, I'm calling about your uncle's estate. You're listed as the primary beneficiary in his will. I figured there might be something, maybe a few thousand for college funds or whatever." He mentioned that once. "It's substantially more than that. Your uncle had extensive property holdings and investment portfolios. After estate taxes and final expenses, you're inheriting approximately $47 million. I nearly dropped my phone, sat down hard on my office chair. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" $47 million, give or take depending on final property valuations. The real estate needs to be sold, which will take some time, but the liquid assets, stocks, bonds, cash savings, those are being transferred now. You should see the first deposit within 30 days. I couldn't speak for a moment, just sat there in my office, staring at nothing. "Trevor, are you still there?" "Yeah. Sorry, I had no idea." "Your uncle was very successful, Trevor. Very careful with money, made smart investments over 40 years. He wanted to make sure you were taken care of. Said you were the only family member who really understood hard work and building something yourself. Congratulations." After I hung up, I sat in my office for 20 minutes, just processing. $47 million. That was generational wealth, life-changing money. The kind of money that meant I'd never worry about anything financial again. I didn't tell Madison. Didn't tell anyone except Catherine, who I called immediately. "This changes everything," Catherine said when I told her. "In California, inheritance is separate property if it's received by one spouse alone through gift or bequest. It's not community property. Your wife has zero legal claim to it. She doesn't know yet. Excellent. Keep it that way. This inheritance could actually protect you significantly. If she files for divorce thinking you're just a regular engineer with normal assets, she'll have no leverage for going after the inheritance. We can use this. So I kept working, kept my routine, kept pretending everything was normal. Meanwhile, the executor was processing Uncle Lawrence's estate. The liquid assets, stocks, bonds, and cash, hit my new separate bank account in mid-May. $11 million. Just sitting there while I drove my paid-off F-150 and lived in our modest Glendale house and built furniture in my garage workshop, Madison had no idea. Absolutely none. Then June happened. Specifically, June 14th, a Wednesday that started normal and ended with me in surgery. I woke up that morning with pain in my lower right abdomen. Sharp, stabbing pain that got progressively worse as the day went on. Tried to work through it, had a client meeting scheduled, but by noon I could barely stand. Left the office early and drove myself to Glendale Memorial ER, thinking maybe it was food poisoning or a muscle strain from moving lumber in my workshop. The ER doctor examined me, ordered a CT scan, came back 30 minutes later with results. Mr. Patterson, you have acute appendicitis. We need to remove your appendix today. I'm calling the surgical team now. Emergency surgery was scheduled for 6 p.m. that evening. They admitted me, started an IV, began prep. I called Madison from the pre-op room around 5. Hey, I'm at Glendale Memorial. They're taking my appendix out in about an hour. Oh my God, are you okay? What happened? Appendicitis. They said it's routine but needs to come out today before it ruptures. I'll come as soon as I can finish this client meeting. Should be there by 7. She never showed not during surgery, not after. I woke up in recovery around 8 p.m., groggy and in significant pain despite the medication. Checked my phone, nothing from Madison. Texted her. Out of surgery. Everything went fine. Her response came an hour later. That's great. So glad you're okay. See you tomorrow. The next morning, Thursday, June 15th, I was in my hospital room on the 4th floor. They'd moved me there around 11 p.m. the night before after monitoring me in recovery. I'd slept fitfully through the night, woken up repeatedly by nurses checking vitals and adjusting my IV. The morphine drip kept the worst pain at bay, but I felt foggy and exhausted and sore. Around 10 a.m., my hospital room door opened. Madison walked in, not with flowers or a card or even a concerned expression. She walked in with a man in a charcoal suit carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Sign these, she said without preamble. She slid a thick stack of papers onto my lap, right over the hospital blanket. The motion was casual, practiced, like she was handing me a permission slip instead of destroying our marriage. I was still groggy from the morphine. My abdomen ached where they'd cut into me just hours earlier. The IV line pulled uncomfortably when I shifted to look at the documents. What is this? Divorce papers. Her voice was completely flat, efficient, like she was reading from a script. I want a divorce, Trevor, and I want half of everything. The words didn't process immediately. The room was too bright, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a machine was beeping in a steady rhythm. I just had surgery, I said stupidly. I know. She crossed her arms. That's exactly why I'm here now. Sign them before something else happens and complicates the estate. The lawyer stepped forward with that practiced smile. His business card read, Howard Bennett and Associates. He had the kind of face that probably charged $500 an hour minimum. Mr. Patterson, I'm Howard Bennett. I represent your wife in this matter. Under California community property law, Mrs. Patterson is entitled to 50% of all marital assets acquired during your marriage. He paused deliberately for effect, including your uncle's inheritance. My blood went completely cold. Not because of the divorce, I'd been expecting that since March, but because of what he just said about the inheritance. How did you know about? Madison's smile was thin and sharp as a razor. Your phone, Trevor. I've had access to your iCloud account for months now. The executor left you a voicemail yesterday morning at 9:47. $47 million from Uncle Lawrence's estate. She leaned closer, her perfume overwhelming. And under California law, I'm entitled to exactly half, $23.5 million. I stared at her, really looked at her for the first time in months, maybe years. Her makeup was absolutely flawless, professional-level application, hair highlighted and blown out perfectly. Probably cost $400 at that fancy salon in Beverly Hills she'd started frequenting. The designer watch on her wrist that she'd claimed 6 months ago was a birthday gift from her mother. The blouse that I'd never seen before, labels I recognized from high-end stores. Sign the papers, Trevor, she said, her voice taking on an edge. Or I promise you, I'll make this uglier than it needs to be. My lawyer's the best in the city. I didn't sign. My hand stayed on the hospital blanket, IV line trailing from my arm. The pen sat untouched beside the stack of papers. Fine. She snatched the documents back with an angry motion. Then I'll see you in court and trust me. My lawyer's better than anyone you'll be able to afford on your engineer salary. Howard Bennett gave me a condescending nod, like I was a child who'd made a poor decision. We'll be in touch very soon, Mr. Patterson. Have your attorney contact my office. They left together. The door clicked shut with a finality that echoed in the quiet room. I lay there in that hospital bed, staring at the acoustic ceiling tiles while the morphine drip fed steadily into my vein, and my surgical incision throbbed under layers of bandages. Madison never once asked how the surgery went. Never asked if I was in pain, if I needed anything, if I was scared. She only wanted to know where to sign to take half of everything I had. What Madison didn't know, what her expensive lawyer didn't know, was that I'd been expecting this divorce since March. I'd been systematically documenting her affair for months. I'd been working with Catherine Miller, building an airtight case, and most importantly, I'd already secured the inheritance in ways they couldn't touch. I called Catherine from the hospital that afternoon, after the nurse adjusted my pain medication. She served you where? Catherine asked, and I could hear the disbelief in her voice. Hospital bed. About 6 hours after surgery, brought her lawyer and everything. There was a pause, then Catherine actually laughed. Trevor, she just made our case 10 times easier. Filing for divorce in a hospital room while you're recovering from emergency surgery? That's going to play beautifully in court. The judge is going to hate that. And the inheritance? Still in the separate account. Haven't touched it. Haven't commingled anything. Perfect. Let her come at us thinking she's getting half of $47 million. We'll let her overplay her hand completely, get overconfident, then we'll destroy her. The divorce proceedings officially started in July. Bennett filed Madison's petition with the court, claiming she was entitled to half the house, half my retirement accounts, half the inheritance, and substantial spousal support. The total dollar amount she was demanding, $24.8 million plus ongoing monthly support. Catherine filed our response in early August. We acknowledged the marriage, acknowledged that California community property law applied to assets acquired during marriage, but made crystal clear that the inheritance was separate property under California Family Code Section 770. We also included a bombshell counterclaim, full restitution of the $43,600 Madison had stolen and transferred to her secret joint account with Blake Harrison. According to Catherine, Madison's reaction when she learned we knew about the affair and the money was explosive. She'd apparently assumed I didn't know about either, that I was just some oblivious engineer who worked long hours and didn't pay attention. Bennett tried to claim the transfers were joint decisions, and that I had been fully aware and approved of the separate account. Catherine's response was beautifully simple. Produce any documentation showing Mr. Patterson's consent to open that joint account with Mr. Harrison. Show us any evidence where Mr. Patterson authorized those specific transfers. They couldn't, because I hadn't known, hadn't consented, and the account had been deliberately hidden from me. The discovery phase was absolutely brutal for Madison's case. We subpoenaed everything, her phone records going back 2 years, her work emails, her personal email accounts, all bank statements. We deposed her under oath for 6 hours. We deposed Blake Harrison for 4 hours. We systematically built an airtight case showing deliberate, systematic theft of marital funds and a long-term affair with her married supervisor Blake Harrison's wife Sophie, found out about the affair during our discovery phase when our subpoena for Blake's financial records landed on their doorstep. She filed for divorce within a week. Blake tried initially to deny everything, claimed Madison was just a work colleague, but the evidence was overwhelming. Thousands of text messages, hotel receipts, photos, email discussions about their future together. Sophie took him for everything she legally could. Meanwhile, Madison was spiraling. She'd quit her job at Maverick Solutions. Couldn't exactly continue working there after her affair with the VP of sales became public knowledge during discovery. She moved back in with her parents in Riverside, living in her childhood bedroom at 29. Started working retail at some department store, trying desperately to scrape together money for legal fees that were piling up. The trial was finally scheduled for November 6, 2025. 8 months after Madison had served me papers in that hospital bed while I was recovering from surgery, I walked into that courtroom calm and fully prepared. Wore my best suit, had Catherine Miller beside me, and had a folder absolutely packed with evidence that was about to systematically destroy Madison's case. Madison sat at the other table with Howard Bennett, looking smaller somehow than I'd ever seen her. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced with a simple dress from Target or somewhere similar. Minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a basic ponytail. She was clearly trying to look sympathetic, humble, remorseful. Judge Morrison, a woman in her early 60s with sharp, intelligent eyes and a reputation for having zero patience for nonsense, called the court to order, "We're here today for the dissolution of marriage between Trevor Patterson and Madison Patterson. Petitioner, you may begin." Howard Bennett stood and launched into his opening argument, gave this whole speech about how Madison had been a devoted, supportive wife throughout our 8-year marriage, how she'd supported my engineering career, managed our home, been a true partner, how she deserved half of everything including the inheritance because marriage is a partnership in all things. "Your Honor," Bennett said with practiced sympathy, "Mrs. Patterson was completely unaware of any inheritance until after she'd already filed for divorce in good faith. She acted based on the understanding that marital assets consisted of the family home, retirement accounts, and joint savings. The inheritance, while technically received by Mr. Patterson alone, was obtained during the marriage and should rightfully be considered community property subject to equal division." Catherine stood up slowly, didn't say a single word yet, just stood there until Judge Morrison's attention shifted to her. "Ms. Miller, your response?" "Your Honor, I'll be very brief on the inheritance issue. The money Mr. Patterson received is explicitly and unambiguously protected under California Family Code Section 770. It was received by gift from a deceased relative to one spouse alone and was never commingled with any community assets. Mrs. Patterson has absolutely no legal claim to it whatsoever. That's settled law. But more importantly," Catherine continued, and her voice took on an edge, "we need to address Mrs. Patterson's actual conduct during this marriage." She approached the bench carrying a thick folder and handed it to Judge Morrison bank statements showing the systematic withdrawals over 14 months, documentation of the secret joint account with Blake Harrison, phone records showing literally thousands of text messages between Madison and Blake, printed emails discussing their affair in explicit detail and outlining their plan to leave their respective spouses. Judge Morrison's expression grew progressively darker as she read through the evidence. She looked up at Madison with barely concealed contempt. "Mrs. Patterson, did you open a joint savings account with Blake Harrison without your husband's knowledge?" Madison's voice was barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor." "And did you transfer a total of $43,600 from your marital joint account to this secret account?" "Yes, but I thought I was—" "Yes or no, Mrs. Patterson?" "Yes, Your Honor." Catherine walked to the courtroom display screen and pulled up an email Madison's own words to Blake from March, timestamp clearly visible. "Took another $2,000 today from the joint account. Trevor didn't even notice when I transferred it this morning. We're at $41,000 now. Almost at our goal." Blake Harrison's response from the same night, "Perfect. Keep it up. My lawyer says I need 6 months minimum before the divorce finalizes. We just need to hold out a little longer." Another email appeared on the screen. Madison to Blake from January. "Sometimes I feel guilty about this. He's not a bad guy, just boring and financially mediocre." Blake's response, "You deserve so much better than that, we both do. Don't lose focus on the goal." The courtroom was completely silent except for Madison's quiet crying. I looked across the room and spotted Blake Harrison sitting in the back row. His face was gray, ashen. His hands were gripping the bench in front of him like he might fall over. "Your Honor," Catherine said, "Mr. Patterson is seeking full restitution of the $43,600 that was stolen, plus punitive damages for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. He's also requesting that Mrs. Patterson receive 0% of any marital assets due to her financial misconduct, systematic deception, and infidelity that directly undermined the marriage." "Your Honor, please," Howard Bennett started desperately. Judge Morrison held up her hand sharply. "Mrs. Patterson, you knew you were taking money without your husband's knowledge, correct?" Madison couldn't even speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. "And you transferred that money to an account held jointly with another man?" Another silent nod. "And you were planning to leave your husband and use these stolen funds to start a new life with your affair partner?" "I didn't know about—" Madison's voice broke completely. "I didn't know about the inheritance. If I'd known he had millions of dollars—" "That's completely irrelevant," Judge Morrison said coldly, cutting her off. "Your husband's financial status doesn't justify theft, Mrs. Patterson. It doesn't excuse systematic deception. And it certainly doesn't entitle you to benefit from criminal behavior." She looked at Howard Bennett with barely concealed disgust. "Does your client have any legitimate defense for this embezzlement?" Bennett looked like he desperately wanted to sink through the courtroom floor and disappear. No, Your Honor. Judge Morrison closed the folder with a sharp snap that echoed in the silent courtroom. Here's my ruling. The inheritance of $47 million is Mr. Patterson's separate property under California Family Code Section 770. Mrs. Patterson has zero claim to it. Zero. The marital home will be sold, and proceeds divided equally after the outstanding mortgage is satisfied. Remaining marital assets will be split 50-50, minus the $43,600. Mrs. Patterson embezzled, which she will repay to Mr. Patterson in full within 90 days. Madison's sobbing intensified, but Judge Morrison wasn't finished. Additionally, I'm ordering Mrs. Patterson to pay Mr. Patterson's legal fees in their entirety. She glanced at a document, which currently totaled $22,000, and I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution for embezzlement and fraud. Howard Bennett actually slumped in his chair. Madison looked like she might physically collapse. Mrs. Patterson, you systematically stole from your husband, funneled that money to a secret account with your affair partner, and then filed for divorce specifically to claim half of an inheritance you had absolutely no legal right to claim. That's not just marital misconduct. That's potentially criminal behavior. This court will not reward that kind of conduct. She looked directly at me, her expression softening slightly. Mr. Patterson, I'm sorry you had to experience this betrayal. Court is adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom with Catherine, feeling physically lighter than I had in years. The house would sell? I honestly didn't care about that at all anymore. The retirement accounts would split according to California law, fine, whatever. But the inheritance was completely protected. Madison was court-ordered to repay every penny she'd stolen, and her reputation was absolutely destroyed. Madison tried calling me that night. I was at my new place, a beautiful 4-bedroom house in Santa Monica with an ocean view that I'd bought with cash from the inheritance 3-car garage, huge yard, and a detached workshop that was literally twice the size of my old garage space. When my phone lit up with Madison, I just let it ring. She called 6 more times in a row. On the 7th call, I finally answered. Trevor, please. Her voice was completely wrecked, hoarse from hours of crying. Please, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand that the money was from before we were married. We can work this out. We can start over fresh. No. Please, Trevor, I made a terrible mistake. Blake manipulated me. He told me we needed money to start over together. I was confused and scared. You stole $43,000 over 14 months. You had an affair for 7 months minimum. You came to my hospital bed the day after emergency surgery to serve me divorce papers. None of that sounds confused to me. I was scared. I thought you were hiding money from me. I wasn't hiding anything, Madison. You never asked. You were too busy planning your escape with Blake and stealing from our marriage to finance it. Silence on the line. Trevor, I'm begging you. Don't let them prosecute me criminally. I'll pay back every penny. I'll sign whatever you want. Just please. Did you beg when you were in hotel rooms with Blake? Did you plead when you were spending my money on designer clothes and highlights? That's not fair. You're absolutely right. It's not fair. But it's exactly what happened. I hung up and blocked her number. Blocked her on every platform. Social media, email, phone, complete digital blackout. The aftermath unfolded like falling dominoes. Blake Harrison's wife Sophie took him to the absolute cleaners in their divorce. Someone, I never asked who, but I strongly suspect Catherine had a hand in it, sent Sophie copies of all the courtroom emails between Blake and Madison. Sophie got the kids, got the house, got a massive support settlement. Blake's company, Maverick Solutions, quietly but firmly asked him to resign after the affair emails became semi-public within their industry. Turns out having an affair with a subordinate and conspiring to embezzle funds from her husband was catastrophically bad for corporate image and liability. Madison moved in with her parents in their Riverside house. Got a job working retail at Target, trying desperately to scrape together enough money to pay me back the $43,600, plus cover my $22,000 in legal fees, plus pay her own lawyer's bills, which totaled another $31,000. She was looking at nearly $100,000 in total debt. The DA's office did open an investigation into potential criminal charges, but ultimately declined to prosecute. Insufficient evidence of criminal intent, they officially said. Though the investigator told Catherine privately off the record that it was more about limited prosecutorial resources than any actual lack of guilt. They had bigger cases to handle. I didn't push for prosecution. Madison's life was ruined enough. Blake stopped returning Madison's increasingly desperate calls about a month after the trial concluded, I heard through Owen, who heard from someone else in their professional network, that Blake had told Madison he couldn't be with someone so reckless and stupid. The irony was apparently lost on him. 6 months later, I was sitting in my Santa Monica house. Custom furniture I'd built myself in my new workshop, ocean breeze coming through the open windows, absolutely at peace. When I got a LinkedIn message from Blake Harrison, I hope you're happy. Hope. You destroyed 2 lives over money you didn't even earn yourself. Madison genuinely loved you, and you threw her away like garbage over one mistake. I hope that money keeps you warm at night because you'll die completely alone. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed out a response. I didn't destroy your lives. You two did that entirely yourselves through your own choices and actions. I just made absolutely certain you couldn't profit from those choices. And for the record, I never threw Madison away. She threw me away the moment she decided that $47 million was worth more than 8 years of marriage and partnership. You and she deserve each other. Unfortunately for both of you, neither of you can afford the lifestyle you carefully planned together. I hit send, blocked him immediately, and that was that I'm dating someone new now. Emily, a kindergarten teacher I met at the Sunday Farmers Market in Santa Monica. She has absolutely no idea about the inheritance, thinks I just do very well with the custom furniture business, which I actually do. We're taking it slow, building something real based on complete honesty instead of assumptions and lies. Owen still comes over for weekly poker nights with a few other guys from our college days. We sit in my workshop, surrounded by sawdust and the smell of wood stain, and play cards while I tell them about my latest furniture commissions. You know what the craziest part is? Owen said last week while shuffling the deck. Madison could have had all of this. The house, the workshop, the financial security. Instead, she chose to gamble everything on Blake and lost absolutely everything. He was completely right. She'd had a genuinely good life, not extravagant or flashy, but comfortable and secure and stable. She chose to throw it all away for a fantasy that never materialized. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.